The containment field collapsed with a sound like breaking glass, and 30,000 Vorthak prisoners erupted into the courtyard like a tidal wave of rage and fighting. I pressed my secondary arms against the observation deck's reinforced barrier, watching our pacification operation turn into an absolute nightmare. Below, the humans we'd captured were being torn apart, literally by creatures that hadn't seen daylight in 50 cycles. Their screams echoed off the metallic walls of Detention Complex Gamma-7, mixing with the chittering war cries of the Vorthak horde. "Commander Yixtal," my aide whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. "Perhaps we should activate the emergency protocols." No. I kept my 4 eyes fixed on the carnage. The Council wants to see what these humans are truly capable of. Let them prove their worth, or die trying. What happened next still makes my exoskeleton itch. Dr. Elena Vasquez, 5'0", wearing those ridiculous rubber sandals humans call flip-flops, armed with nothing but a cracked datapad, stepped into the center of the courtyard. The Vorthak swarm parted around her like she was radioactive. Then she opened her mouth and spoke, not in Galactic Standard, not in trade pidgin, not even in the guttural Vorthak tongue that takes most species decades to master. She spoke in time's ancient Vorthak *, the ceremonial dialect, the one that died out 3,000 years ago when their homeworld got glassed by the hegemony. * Creth he Valdun next Torvain, Maleth kes Orvain. * I nearly fell off the observation deck. My aide's breathing apparatus made a sound like a deflating balloon. The Vorthak stopped. 30,000 killing machines, bred for nothing but destruction, froze mid-slaughter. Their primary warrior, a scarred brute we'd nicknamed Bone Grinder, dropped the human soldier he'd been about to disembowel. Sectath Morvan Day. Bone Grinder's voice cracked like he was seeing a ghost. Who speaks the old words? Dr. Vasquez adjusted her glasses, Time's glasses, for the love of the void, who still wore corrective lenses when optical surgery existed, and smiled. That terrifying human expression that shows their predator teeth. Keth Soravan, Neth Kai Valdun. I am a friend, children of the void. The silence stretched so long I thought my audio receptors had malfunctioned. Then Bone Grinder did something I'd never seen a Vorthak do in 40 years of military service. He knelt. All 30,000 followed suit, their chitinous knees hitting the courtyard floor with a sound like thunder. The dying human soldiers stared in absolute bewilderment as their would-be killers prostrated themselves before a linguistics professor in beach footwear. What the hell is happening? Captain Miranda Torres, the human military leader we'd been, interrogating, pulled herself upright against a support pillar, blood streaming from a gash across her forehead. Doctor. Vasquez glanced back at her, still smiling that unnerving smile. Diplomacy, Captain. Though I suspect our hosts didn't expect it to work quite this well. She was right. We hadn't expected it to work at all. The Vorthak were supposed to be our final test. 3 months ago, when the Galactic Council decided to evaluate whether humanity deserved membership or extermination, we'd designed what we thought was the perfect trial. Take their strongest warriors, their brightest scientists, their most cunning leaders. Throw them into impossible scenarios, watch them break. Instead, we kept watching them adapt. The military scenarios? Captain Torres turned our war games into masterclasses in asymmetric warfare, using tactics so unconventional our combat AI had nervous breakdowns trying to predict her next move. The scientific challenges? Dr. Marcus Webb solved theoretical problems that had stumped our greatest minds for centuries, then had the audacity to point out 3 fundamental flaws in our quantum mechanics models. The psychological torture? Dr. Sarah Kim, their head of xenopsychology, actually thanked us for the fascinating insights into non-human behavioral modification techniques and asked if she could interview the interrogators. But this was supposed to be impossible. The ancient Vorthak dialect wasn't just dead, it was time's extinct asterisk. The language died with their civilization. We checked, multiple times, cross-referenced with every database in Council space. The linguistic patterns were lost forever. Except, apparently they weren't. Morvan kes nethai severin. Bone Grinder's voice held a reverence I'd never heard from his species. How do you know the words of our ancestors? Asterisk. Dr. Vasquez walked closer to the massive warrior, her flip-flops making soft slapping sounds against the metal floor. She reached up times up asterisk. Because even kneeling, Bone Grinder towered over her and placed a small hand against his scarred carapace. Asterisk Vorthak Nethsaven Kral. Torvain de Maleth Orvain Kesan. Asterisk asterisk. Your people never truly died. Their words live in the songs you still sing. Asterisk, my translator, implant nearly short-circuited trying to process that sentence. The grammatical structures didn't exist in any known database. She was speaking a language that predated our oldest records, using verb forms that suggested intimacy, familial connection. Impossible, I whispered, but my aide was already pulling up linguistic analysis reports. Commander, he said, his voice tight with disbelief. She's not just speaking ancient Vorthak, she's speaking it correctly, with regional variations, honorific modulations, emotional subcurrents that suggest she understands not just the words, but the cultural context behind them. I watched Dr. Vasquez help one of the injured human soldiers to his feet, still chattering away in that dead language. The Vorthak around her weren't just listening, they were times responding asterisk, engaging in actual conversation, discussing philosophy, from the sound of it. How long has she been studying their language? I asked. My aide's mandibles clicked rapidly as he accessed the human database. According to her academic records, she's never studied Vorthak at all. Her specializations are in comparative linguistics and Dead Earth languages, ancient Sanskrit, medieval Gaelic, Proto-Indo-European reconstruction. The bottom fell out of my thorax. Then how? Asterisk. Commander asterisk. Captain Torres called out, her voice cutting through the courtyard like a plasma blade. She was looking directly at our observation deck, despite the supposed one-way barriers. I think it's time we had a conversation. The way she said conversation made my primary stomachs clench. Humans had a talent for making perfectly innocent words sound like death threats. Dr. Vasquez spoke briefly to Bone Grinder in that impossible language, then turned toward our position as well. Her smile had shifted into something that would have made a hegemony admiral nervous. Oh, and Commander Yixtal? Her voice carried clearly across the courtyard. When you're ready to discuss the real reason you brought us here, we'll be waiting. Dr. Webb finished decrypting your data files about 2 hours ago, and Dr. Kim has sometimes, very times, interesting theories about your council's true objectives. The observation deck fell silent, except for the soft hum of life support systems. My aide made that deflating balloon sound again. Sir, how did she know we could hear her? I didn't answer. I was too busy trying to figure out how a linguistics professor from a backwater planet had just turned our ultimate test into what looked suspiciously like a Times counter-interrogation asterisk, and why, despite every tactical advantage we possessed, I suddenly felt like the one being evaluated. Dr. Vasquez had started speaking to the Vorthak again, and whatever she was saying made them laugh times, in harmonious chittering sounds that hadn't been heard in council space for millennia. The injured humans were being tended to by creatures who'd been trying to kill them minutes earlier. Captain Torres was organizing her surviving soldiers with calm efficiency, as if spontaneous prisoner uprisings were just another Tuesday for her species. Dr. Webb had somehow acquired a council datapad and was showing complex mathematical equations to a group of fascinated Vorthak scholars. Dr. Kim was conducting what appeared to be an impromptu therapy session with a cluster of younger prisoners, using gestures and broken trade pidgin to bridge the communication gap. In 30 minutes, they'd turned a massacre into a diplomatic summit, a death sentence into a cultural exchange program, and our ultimate weapon into their eager audience. Sir, my aide whispered, what are your orders? I watched Dr. Vasquez demonstrate some sort of human dance move to a group of giggling Vorthak younglings, her flip-flops somehow staying attached to her feet despite the complex footwork. Cancel the emergency protocols, I said finally, and get me a direct line to the council. We have a problem. What kind of problem, sir? I gestured at the scene below, where impossible conversations in dead languages were creating bonds between species that had been killing each other for centuries. The kind where our test subjects just became our teachers. But as I reached for the communications array, Dr. Vasquez looked up at our observation deck one more time. The smile was gone, replaced by an expression of cold calculation that made my combat training instincts scream warnings. "Oh, and Commander," she called out pleasantly, "you might want to check your detention logs. I think you'll find some interesting discrepancies." My aide's data screen flickered, then displayed a series of numbers that made my biological fluid run cold. We'd captured 23 humans for this test. There were 37 humans in the facility. Impossible, I breathed. But even as I said it, I was counting heads in the courtyard below. Human heads. Far too many human heads. "Doctor." Vasquez's smile returned, sharp as a vibro blade and twice as dangerous. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying impossible clearly across the distance between us, "I think it's time you learned the first rule of dealing with humans." "Which is?" I found myself asking, despite knowing I didn't want to hear the answer. "We never travel alone." The lights went out. Emergency illumination kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing everything in red emergency light. But in those 3 seconds of darkness, I heard something that would haunt my nightmares for cycles to come. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Moving through our facility with the kind of coordinated precision that spoke of military training and detailed intelligence. When the lights returned, Captain Torres was standing next to Dr. Vasquez. So were Dr. Webb and Dr. Kim. And behind them, emerging from ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels that supposedly didn't connect to the detention areas, came more humans. A lot more humans. All armed, all wearing the kind of equipment that definitely hadn't been in their possession when we'd captured them, and all looking at our observation deck with expressions that made the Vorthak prisoners seem cuddly by comparison. "Who speaks for the Galactic Council?" "Doctor." Vasquez called out in perfect council standard, her voice now carrying the kind of authority that made admirals snap to attention. I realized, with growing horror, that our evaluation had been correct. We just hadn't understood who was evaluating whom. My communication implant crackled to life before I could respond to Dr. Vasquez's question. High Admiral Kethmore's voice filled the observation deck with barely controlled panic. "Commander Yixtal, we're reading massive energy signatures throughout your facility. What's your status?" I kept my eyes locked on the humans. Below, all 37 of them now visible and very much not behaving like prisoners. "Admiral, we have a situation." "Define situation." "The humans appear to have reinforcements." A pause that lasted several heartbeats. "Reinforcements? Commander, that facility is located in the void reaches. The nearest human settlement is 47 light-years away. How could they possibly have the transmission cut off mid-sentence?" Dr. Vasquez tilted her head, listening to something I couldn't hear. Then she pressed what looked like a standard council communicator against her ear, where the hell had she gotten that, and spoke in crisp, professional tones. "Phoenix Base, this is Linguistics Team Leader Vasquez. Package is secure, subjects are cooperative, and the testing parameters have been adjusted. Request immediate extraction for all personnel, including our new friends." Phoenix Base? I'd never heard of any human installation by that designation, and our intelligence networks monitored every aspect of their pathetic little civilization, didn't they? Captain Torres was organizing the humans into defensive positions with military efficiency that made my carapace itch. These weren't panicked prisoners or desperate survivors. They moved like a special operations unit, executing a predetermined plan. "How long have they been here?" I whispered to my aide. He was frantically cycling through sensor data, his mandibles clicking so rapidly they created a continuous buzz. "Sir, I'm detecting residual energy signatures consistent with stealth field generators. Multiple types. Some of these readings date back. Weeks. My primary stomach's clenched. "Weeks? We've only had them for 3 days. That's what the data says, sir. Below us, Doctor." Webb had produced what appeared to be a military-grade scanner from somewhere in his clothing and was taking readings of our facility's structural integrity. Dr. Kim was speaking in low, urgent tones, with several Vorthak who seemed to be providing detailed information about the detention complex's layout. And Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez was walking directly toward our observation deck, still wearing those ridiculous flip-flops, still smiling that predator smile. Asterisk, Kethai Norin, Commander Yixtal. Asterisk, she called out in ancient Vorthak. Asterisk, we need to talk. Asterisk, she's speaking to you in the old tongue. Bone Grinder rumbled, his massive form following behind the tiny human like a devoted hound. She honors you with the words of diplomacy. I activated the deck's external speakers. Dr. Vasquez, I don't understand what you think you're accomplishing here. Oh, I think you understand perfectly. She'd reached the base of our observation platform and was examining the support structure with professional interest. The question is whether you're willing to admit it. Admit what? That this was never a test. The words hit me like a plasma bolt to the thorax. Around us, emergency alarms began wailing as my aide's sensor readings painted an increasingly impossible picture. Energy signatures that suggested advanced technology we didn't recognize. Movement patterns that indicated the humans had been studying our facility for far longer than we'd been studying them. You're suggesting we, I began. I'm not suggesting anything. Dr. Vasquez found what she was looking for, some sort of maintenance access panel, and began working on it with tools I definitely hadn't seen during her initial processing. I'm stating facts. The Galactic Council didn't bring us here to evaluate our fitness for membership. You brought us here because something is hunting Council ships in this sector, and you need help figuring out what. My aide made that deflating balloon sound again, but this time it was pure terror. Sir, he whispered, she's accessing our classified files. How is she accessing our classified files? Dr. Vasquez's fingers danced across interfaces that should have required biometric authorization from at least 3 different species. Because, gentlemen, we've been monitoring your communications for the past 6 months. Dr. Webb's theoretical physics work. Those corrections to your quantum mechanics models weren't academic exercises. They were patches to fix the holes in your sensor networks. She paused in her work to look up at us, and for the first time, I saw the true intelligence burning behind those corrective lenses. The Devourers have been using quantum tunneling to avoid your detection grids. We've been tracking them since they consumed the research station at Kepler 9. Asterisk Devourers, asterisk. The name hit me like ice water in my biological systems. That was classified at the highest levels, species extinction level classified. How do you know about them, Doctor? Vasquez returned to her work, the access panel sliding open under her ministrations. Because they tried to eat Earth first. Mistake number 1 was assuming we wouldn't notice. Mistake number 2 was assuming we couldn't fight back. Captain Torres had moved to a position where she could cover multiple approach vectors. Her liberated sidearm trained on the corridor leading to our observation deck. The other humans had formed a defensive perimeter that somehow incorporated the Vorthak prisoners as willing participants. Dr. Kim's psychological profiles weren't for council evaluation, I realized aloud. You were studying times as asterisk, learning how we think, how we react. Bingo. Doctor. Vasquez pulled something that looked suspiciously like a military-grade data core from the access panel. Though I have to say, your reaction times are pretty impressive. Most species take longer to figure out they've been played. The facility's lighting suddenly shifted from emergency red to standard illumination, then to something brighter, more focused. The kind of lighting used for detailed technical work. Phoenix Base, this is Dr. Webb, the physicist's voice echoed, through speakers I didn't know existed. I've got control of the facility's primary systems, beginning defensive preparations now. Asterisk. Defensive preparations? Asterisk. My aide was practically vibrating with panic. Sir, he's accessing our weapons systems, our shield generators, our... His voice cut off as new data flooded his screens. Commander, I'm reading massive energy buildup in the outer system. Multiple contacts. Configuration suggests... Oh, void. Preserve us. What is it? It's them, sir. The Devourers. 17 ships, closing on our position. Dr. Vasquez pocketed her data core and started climbing the maintenance ladder toward our observation deck. Right on schedule. Dr. Kim's psychological modeling predicted they'd follow our heat signature. Devourers are predictable that way, they can't resist easy prey. Easy prey? My voice cracked like I was molting. This facility houses 30,000 Vorthak prisoners and a full council garrison. Exactly. She hauled herself onto our deck with surprising agility, flip-flops somehow maintaining their grip on the metal rungs. From their perspective, we're a buffet. Thousands of sentient beings packed into a convenient location, minimal defensive capability, isolated location perfect for feeding without interference. I backed away from her, suddenly aware that this small human in beachwear had just classified our supposedly impregnable military installation as times bait asterisk. You're insane. I'm thorough. She walked to the main observation window and gazed out at the stars. The Devourers wiped out 6 Council colonies before anyone even knew they existed. Another 12 fell while your leadership was still debating whether they were real. They're systematic, efficient, and completely without mercy. She turned back to us, and her expression had hardened into something that belonged on a battlefield. They're also stupid. Stupid? My aide squeaked. They hunt by following energy signatures and consuming everything they find. No reconnaissance, no tactical analysis. They just arrive, eat, and move on. It never occurred to them that someone might use that predictability against them. The deck shuddered as something massive impacted our outer shields. Phoenix base to all units. Captain Torres's voice filled the facility. Hostile contact confirmed. 17 Devourer ships beginning attack patterns. All personnel to combat stations. Asterisk. Combat stations. Asterisk. In a detention facility. With prisoners and a skeleton crew. Dr. Vasquez was checking what looked like a military chronometer. Dr. Webb. Status on the quantum resonance array. 70% charged and climbing. Need another 8 minutes for full power. You've got 5. Dr. Kim, how are our new friends handling the situation? Dr. Kim's voice carried barely controlled excitement. Better than expected. The Vorthak have experience with Devourer tactics. Apparently they've been fighting running battles with scout ships for decades. Bonegrinder says his warriors are ready to paint the void with enemy Ica, which I'm taking as enthusiastic consent. I stared at Dr. Vasquez in growing horror. You're going to fight them. Here. Now. Commander, the Devourers have consumed 27 Council worlds. They've killed billions of sentient beings. They've shattered entire civilizations. Her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Yes, we're going to fight them. And we're going to win. With what? 37 humans, a bunch of prisoners, and a detention facility? She smiled that terrifying human smile. Oh, Commander, you still don't understand. The main display screen flickered to life, showing tactical readouts that shouldn't have existed in a facility of this type. Star charts, ship positions, weapons arrays, and more human ships than should have been possible. Phoenix base actual to facility Gamma 7, a new voice announced. This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. We have 17 Devourer ships on approach vector. All units report ready for Operation Lazarus. Asterisk, Terran Deep Space Fleet. Asterisk, we didn't have any record of humans possessing deep space capability beyond basic system patrol craft. Admiral Stone, Dr. Vasquez replied. Lazarus protocol is authorized. Begin Phase 1. Acknowledged. All ships, execute Delta formation. Let's show these things how humans hunt. The space around our facility exploded into light as ships decloaked. Not just human ships, Council vessels, hegemony cruisers, even what looked like repurposed Vorthak warships. All of them had been waiting, watching, preparing. How many ships do you have out there? I whispered. 43 combat vessels, 16 support craft, and 3 mobile repair platforms. Dr. Vasquez was monitoring multiple data streams with casual efficiency, plus whatever Admiral Stone brought from Sector 7. That's a fleet engagement force. Yes, it is. The Devourer ships hit our outer perimeter and found themselves facing coordinated fire from positions that hadn't existed moments before. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes lit up the void as the humans executed tactical maneuvers that would have impressed our best admirals. Dr. Webb, Dr. Vasquez called out. Quantum resonance array status? Fully charged and locked on target. Ready to fire on your command. Fire. The facility shuddered as something I'd never seen before channeled power through arrays that definitely hadn't been part of the original construction. A beam of pure energy, somehow different from any weapon I knew, lanced out toward the largest Devourer ship. It didn't explode, it didn't burn, it simply stopped. Dead in space, all systems offline, as if someone had reached out and turned off a switch. What did you do to it? Quantum resonance disruption. Dr. Vasquez was watching her chronometer again. Every sentient species in this galaxy uses quantum consciousness as the foundation of thought. The Devourers consume that consciousness to feed. But if you disrupt the quantum field at the right frequency, the dead Devourer ship began to drift apart, its biomechanical structure losing cohesion without the quantum binding that held it together. You turned off its brain. More like we gave it a lobotomy. Without quantum consciousness holding the biological and mechanical components together, they're just really expensive scrap metal. Another beam fired. Another Devourer ship went dark. Dr. Kim, Dr. Vasquez continued, how are our Vorthak friends handling the demonstration? They're asking if we can teach them to build these weapons. Also, Bone Grinder wants to know if all human females are as terrifying as you are. Tell him only on days ending in ye. I watched the most feared predators in Council space being systematically 24, disabled by humans using technology we didn't understand, tactics we couldn't predict, and strategies we never would have considered. Why? I asked finally. Why help us? Why not just let the Devourers consume Council space and expand human territory? Dr. Vasquez turned from her displays to look at me directly. Because that's not who we are, Commander. We could have let Earth fall to the Devourers and built new colonies somewhere else. We could have hidden behind our superior technology and watched the galaxy burn. But humans don't run from fights we can win. She gestured toward the tactical display, where human ships were moving to assist damaged Council vessels. And we don't abandon potential allies who are worth saving. The last Devourer ship died under concentrated fire from the combined fleet. The void fell silent except for rescue operations and damage assessment. Phoenix Base to all units, Admiral Stone announced. Devourer fleet destroyed, 0 friendly losses. Operation Lazarus successful. Dr. Vasquez picked up her communicator. Admiral, this is Dr. Vasquez. Request permission to begin diplomatic phase with Council representatives. Granted. Try not to give them too many heart attacks. She looked at me expectantly. So, Commander Yixtal, ready to discuss humanity's application for Council membership? I think we've demonstrated our qualifications. I stared at her, this small human in flip-flops who'd just orchestrated the destruction of our greatest enemy while conducting linguistic research and organizing a prison break. Dr. Vasquez, I said carefully, what dialect of ancient Vorthak were you speaking earlier? She grinned. The Keftai variant, spoken by the scholarly caste during the Third Dynasty. I learned it from the songs Bone Grinders people sing when they think no one's listening. But how did you know it was ancient Vorthak? Because, she said, heading toward the ladder, when someone's been imprisoned for 50 years and they're singing lullabies to themselves, the language they choose usually means something important. She paused at the top of the ladder. Besides, Commander humans have been monitoring Council communications for 6 months, remember? We've heard every classified discussion about the Vorthak language project, the Devourer threat, and your little evaluation scheme. Her smile turned absolutely predatory. The real question is, which dialect of human are you going to need to learn for the peace negotiations? As she disappeared down the ladder, leaving me alone with my deflating aid and the wreckage of everything I thought I understood about humanity, one thought echoed through my mind. The humans hadn't just passed our test. They'd rewritten the entire examination. And somehow, I suspected we were the ones who'd learned the most important lesson.